Going back to when you first started, man, what do you think, what drew you to salsa? Like what made you attracted to, and what made you stay with it for so long?
The music, the lyrics, and the ability to meet new people.
Okay.
Those are like three things that matter to me. I love language and languages.
Hello everyone, welcome to today's episode of the 2FE podcast. I'm your host Terrence Greer, and today I am joined by the wonderful and incredible Mr. Shaka Brown.
Wonderful and incredible, just Shaka. Yeah, Shaka's fine.
So if I'm not mistaken, Shaka, you are the director of Capital Congress, which is a 4-day Latin festival hosted here in Washington, D.C.
That's right.
You started that in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
You are also a Mambo dancer, instructor, as well as performer.
Yeah, salsa and mambo.
Salsa and Mambo, sure enough. Born and raised in Washington, D.C., is that correct?
That's right.
Hey, how are you doing today, Shaka?
I'm good. How you feeling, Terrence? Thanks for having me out here today.
Man, I really appreciate it, man, Shaka. So I guess I really wanted to just start this out, but I'm very curious to hear about your childhood growing up in D.C. What was that like for you?
Growing up in D.C., well, I've actually grew up in between D.C. and Florida.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in D.C. at Howard University.
Okay.
Actually, in front of Howard University.
Okay.
I was born in a car.
Really? A
Yeah,
car?
in the car. On the way to the hospital, I was in a rush.
All right.
After that,
wait.
and then after that, my mom went to law school in Florida. And so she carried me on her back to law school. And so I spent the first 10 years of my life in Florida, in Tampa.
Okay.
And then came back to D.C.
Okay, so tell me about that then. What was your childhood like growing up in Florida then?
Growing up in Tampa, Florida, I was a traveler. That was all I ever really wanted to do, was just get out and explore and see the world as much as possible. And so I would make a little bandana, I think they call it a...
Like you about to go...
yeah, exactly, like the little hobo thing, and I would pack it up, and I remember I would go out and I would walk to the water, and I would like kind of look at the bay and the water, and for me, I felt like it was like an all-day exploration.
Okay.
I looked at it later on a map, and I was literally going like 2 blocks away from the house, but that was always been like my like dream is to travel.
Okay.
And so I moved back up to D.C. After 5th grade, and I made my first plane trip because my mother, they packed up everything and they drove up, and my uncle said that I could stay with him for the summer. So I made my first plane flight, and I flew out to, I think he was either in Portland or Seattle. I get them confused. He's always moving between the two. And the plane got lost. They lost me. There were no cell phones. This was like 87.
You were solo by yourself?
Yeah, I flew out there alone.
Fifth grader?
Yeah, as an unaccompanied minor type thing. And so they're supposed to, they keep track of you. But nobody had cell phones at this time. There was no internet. And so the plane got, there was a storm and the plane got overnighted in Colorado.
Wow.
And so my uncle was trying to pick me up, but I wasn't there when the plane was supposed to land. And my mother was driving from Florida up to D.C. So the airline was trying to contact my mother, but they couldn't contact her. So basically I was just lost.
That's crazy.
In the middle of the country. And I was having a great time. I didn't even think about it. I didn't think about calling home. I didn't think about anything.
That's when times have changed. I don't think any parent would do that now.
Yeah.
A 5th grader?
Yeah.
How old were you? Was that 10 maybe?
I was about 10.
That's crazy.
And I was always getting in trouble. And the thing was, I was always getting lost when I was young. Like if they took me to SeaWorld, I would get lost and I would just kind of wander off. So they just were thinking I'd gotten lost again the same way I always got lost, but this time it was actually the plane's fault. But once I finally made it to the West Coast, they found out what everything was, and I was none the wiser as to like having actually been how much of a panic everybody was in. But that was my life growing up.
So you've always been, I guess, inquisitive, is that the word, or what? Explorative?
Yeah, that's my mother's. She said I I asked her once if I was a bad kid, and she said I was full of ideas.
Okay.
So yeah, I was always full of ideas. Sometimes it worked, and sometimes it made everybody go into a panic.
So, I guess let me ask you this thing. You kind of spoke on it, but I'm very curious to hear, man. What were some of your childhood hobbies? You know, what did you enjoy doing? Obviously, exploring.
What did I enjoy doing? Writing. I like to write. I like to take things apart.
Okay.
I mean, I would always, I'm still taking things apart and still always trying to like build something or configure something. And that's been my thing as long as I've known. I would take apart the phones in the house. I would take apart radios, and I like to get as much inside of it to try and figure out how things worked. So that was probably my most defining characteristic of, always taking stuff apart.
Okay. I understand that.
And then eventually I would learn how to put them back together. And I think that became more of a valuable skill.
Yeah.
But you got to be able to do one to do the other. So.
That's fair enough. So let me ask you this, man. Growing up and everything, how important was music in your household?
Music in my household, music has always been a part of my entire family's upbringing. My aunt was a founding member of Urban Bush Woman, a dance company out of New York City. She's a professor at the University of Michigan, Department of Theater. In my mother, she did African dance as well as being a lawyer. Okay. My uncle, he played saxophone. My aunt, like everyone has always used dance and music in their lives and everything that we do. And so, didn't feel so strange that I was doing the same thing. So.
I understand. You told me this before, man, but Hey kid, come here. Hey, if you could leave like and subscribe for the channel, share with the people, that'd be amazing. You told me this before, man, but tell me again, where were your parents from?
My mother is from East Orange, Jersey. It's
Jersey.
It's just outside of New York. When she was in high school, they moved from East Orange to Flemington, a different part of Jersey. Okay. And that was kind of hard on her because it would be the equivalent of like moving from being right outside of New York City and having that to moving into like the middle of the country. And there was nothing. And the closest city is New York City, and it's an hour and a half, 2 hours away. And so that's where my mother's from. My father, didn't really have a lot of contact with him, but he's from Baltimore. Okay. But I didn't really know a whole lot about him. Growing up, it was me and my mother. Okay. And then my stepfather. Eventually. Okay. So you're growing up, I guess in between Florida and DC, and so I guess once you come back to DC, I guess let me ask you this: how do you think DC shaped you? Can you put that into words? How did that shape you as a person? How did DC shape me? Well, when I moved to DC, it was like '87. Okay. And I don't know if you remember or if you heard about. Did you see New Jack City?
Oh, that's the old school movie.
It's an old school movie, yeah.
Who's in that? Is that Wesley? That's what I thought. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, Wesley Snipes, Chris Rock, Ice-T, Christopher Williams.
Is that based in DC? I don't even remember.
No, it's based in New York. Okay. But it's a period piece. So it's set in the 80s when the crack epidemic was first launched. Right. And there was a time that crack epidemic was very much DC was
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, DC used to be a crack city.
Okay. DC is a black city, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it?
There was a time there. That's why they called it Chocolate City.
I didn't know that. I never knew that. But it's still currently a black city, right? Or no?
I mean, the ratios have changed a lot.
The gentrification.
Yeah. Okay. There was a time when it was predominantly a black city.
I say Howard is in the middle of the hood.
I was born right there. that's where I was born.
Yeah.
And so when I moved to DC in '87, it was like the peak of that crack epidemic. DC was the murder capital of the U.S. or murder capital of the world for like 2 or 3 years running. And it was kind of weird because everybody wants to be like the best at something. You don't want to be like the second best. So we were constantly like, we're the murder capital again. But anyway, it was, so that was when I came to DC. And my mother, she moved. We were basically coming back home because my great grandmother was here, and we were just rebuilding our life outside of Florida. And so for me, it was a big adjustment because every time I've moved someplace, it's always been that I was from someplace else.
Okay.
And so like when I was born in DC, but then I moved to Florida immediately. And my mother being a lawyer, she encouraged, not encouraged, she required us to know how to speak, to know how to write, to, critical thinking, all those things. And so folks always like looked at me and said, this little black kid is different.
Eloquent or what?
Yeah, and I was always like, well, they're like, so where are you from? And I was like, well, I'm from DC.
Okay.
But I didn't know anything about DC. And then when I moved to DC, in the middle of this crack epidemic, DC, it was there wasn't as much of a culture of like knowledge and reading and things like that. And so when I came into the middle of that, people were like, where are you from? And I was like, well, I'm from Florida. And then after that, I went to college in Florida. And once again, I was from DC. And then after that, I came back to DC, and I'd been accustomed to being in like Tallahassee. So I was from Florida again. So every time I go, I'm from the other place.
Right, I get you.
Yeah, and so I actually just moved back here from Miami.
Oh.
So I've still got that Florida, DC,
Sure enough, right?
back and forth.
You do.
So it was a big adjustment for me because coming from Tampa, Florida, like the school I was going to, I spent time aftercare, like going to like the Boys and Girls Club and whatnot. But most of the time, like I was the minority of like, there would be like 3 black kids in school.
Okay.
And then I came to DC, and then for 6th grade, I went to like an all black school.
Right.
There was I remember there was 1 white girl and 1 Latino.
Okay.
His name was actually no, the Latino was in 7th grade. So 6th grade. So there was just 1 girl, 1 white girl from there. And then everybody else, it was all black. And then I moved from there to public junior high school, which was the same situation. I actually found my old yearbook from that. And people would sign your yearbook page.
I remember. I definitely remember that.
Yeah. And all they said was like, stop being so weird. I looked back at that, I was like, oh, okay, maybe I was weird. So that was been like my life in moving around a lot and just kind of constantly making adjustment to new people, new environment.
I want to ask you this one. You kind of spoke on it. I'm very curious to hear, man. Tell me about 87 DC though, man. What was that like?
87 DC was wild. If you watch New Jack City,
was it a good representation, or
it was that was 87 DC. This was the time where like Nancy Reagan was using the Just Say No campaign, and at the same time like crack was like destroying the city. There were crack vials everywhere. There were shootings all the time. There were the drug dealers, like if you see the rappers with the big gold chains and the furs, and that was what people were going for.
Right.
And people dying, lots of people dying all the time. It was not even a surprise. It was scary, particularly for parents, because kids don't necessarily have that same concept of fear. They just feel like whatever it is whatever it is.
You don't know any different, right?
Right. But when I think back and I look back at it, I'm like, wow, I'm just happy that, I was able to get through that. But my mother, she like took me out of DC public schools, and she sent me to school, to a private school way north in Maryland.
Okay.
And so I went to school out there, and so I was more.
You relocated? Your family relocated? Or
No, I lived in DC. I had like a 2.5-hour commute.
Every morning?
Every morning, every evening.
She drove you or bus? Or?
No, I just looked at it a couple days ago, what my commute was, because I lived in Southeast DC, and even if I were to take public transportation now, now I can look at it on the phone and Google, and it's still like 2 hours.
Wow.
To get to the school, and so. No, I was commuting every day and getting up at 5:30 just to get out there. And that wasn't easy because I was kind of, I would get to school mad, because other kids, school might start at like 8:30. They would get up at 7:45 and have a big breakfast, and then their parents would drop them off in the school. And, 7:45. If I woke up at 7:45, I wasn't going to school that day because it was just, it wouldn't be worth it for me to try and get out there.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of, I didn't really like having to start off that much behind every single day, and it cost me in sleep and whatnot. But education was phenomenal there. And if I could had a chance to recommend, the kids go to a school that's outside of their environment, if it's a better school, obviously.
Right.
Then, I would put that on them.
Okay.
I just wouldn't make it a 2.5-hour commute.
I understand.
Yeah.
So you go to school, I guess a predominantly black school, and was this private predominantly white? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I understand that. And so you go to that school, I guess, and I guess what year was that? Was that like middle school or high school for you?
I started there in 91, I think. So I came to DC in like 88, and so I graduated from 6th grade in, I guess, 89.
Okay.
Graduated 7th grade, or passed, whatever, 7th grade in 90, and then I went into the 91 class at Landon.
Okay.
So I started there in 91.
Okay, sure enough. So I guess I'm very curious to hear about, so you're going to school and everything. I guess what happens after you graduate high school? You told me you went to university, right?
Yeah, I went to Florida A&M University in Tallahassee, Florida. I had a full scholarship there. I studied computer information systems, and I originally wanted to be pre-med, and then my stepfather, he talked to me. He's like, well, why do you want to be a doctor? And I was like, well, my mother wants me to be a doctor. Okay. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And then he told me that, if you're doing it just because somebody else wants you to do it, it's a hard road.
Hey.
And I'm glad he had that conversation with me, because I watched so many other people going in pre-med and then eventually punching out or changing their majors. And it's not like they changed the majors from pre-med to something else, to pharmacist it was just they were like, no, this is just way too hard.
Okay.
And they just were, they would be like an English major after they spent 3 years of trying to do it, and then they just say, you know what, this is not for me. And so my stepfather suggested that I do computer information systems, and I felt like that was kind of cheating, because I've been around computers all my life. I just live and breathe computers. So I felt like me studying computers was I don't know, if somebody speaks French natively studying French. Yeah. And I'm like, you already speak French. You're not doing any, I felt like, but he's like, no, I didn't even think about the job opportunities or anything. But he told me there's a lot of jobs out there in that, and you're good with computers and you like doing it. And I was like, well, all right, I guess I'll do that.
Yeah.
And so it's basically I was never really a pre-med. I declared pre-med, but as soon as I got to school, I went and changed it to a computer information system. Nice. So I didn't have to take any wasn't punching out of chemistry or organic or anything like that. I went straight into the program.
You said you got a full scholarship?
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, I was a full ride, what do they call it? Presidential scholar.
Oh, man.
Yeah. They had 2 scholarships. Well, they had a bunch of scholarships, but they kind of in descending order. They had the Life Gets Better scholarship, which was a full ride, included everything, housing, your books, your lunch, and they guaranteed you an internship.
Nice.
And then they had the Presidential Scholars, which was everything, but it didn't guarantee the internship.
Okay.
They didn't guarantee it, so you could get one maybe or not. Right. And so I got the Presidential Scholar, so I was happy with that. Yeah. My parents were happy. I wanted to go to Morehouse, and I applied.
That's Georgia, right?
Morehouse is in Atlanta.
Atlanta, yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And I had applied, and I was accepted, and they offered me a 50% off tuition scholarship. And my parents were looking at full ride everything or 50% off tuition. Right. And then once I accepted at FAMU, Morehouse came back and offered a full tuition. But it was still a matter of I still would have had to pay for the housing and the books and the food and everything. So I went to FAM and I paid.
Is FAM HBCU or no?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I'm curious. And what were your thoughts about Howard at that time?
I was not going to go to Howard in the same city that I lived.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah. And so I was born in Howard. My mother went to Howard. My grandmother went to Howard. My grandfather, my brother, my sister, like everybody went to Howard.
Okay.
I mean, I come from a family of Howard bison.
Yeah.
But for me, like college was like, you got to go somewhere.
See something different, man.
Yeah. And
I
so
understand.
I didn't know. I didn't have any family, anything in Tallahassee. I was like, I'm that same traveler. I was like, I got to go somewhere. I'm not going to stay home for the next 4 years.
Yeah, I understand. Let me ask you this, man. You know, looking back on it, how important or how amazing was that full ride, man? Because I went to school in VCU, and I didn't have a scholarship at all, so I have student loans right now, man. So you know, how awesome was that for you?
At the time, I think one of the things to keep in mind is that when you're in like elementary school, high school, like it's all free,
Right?
And so the concept of like having to pay for school is something new for people. Like they kind of, it floats over their head like, okay, you're going to go to college, you hope to get a scholarship, but you know, filling out your FAFSAs and, you know, applying for all that stuff, that's all new for people. And so for me, there were a lot of things that I took for granted because I was expecting school to be, I was just used to not having to pay for school.
Okay.
Even though I went to a private school, you know, my mother, you know, she paid for that, but it wasn't like I knew how much money was coming out of her pocket for me to go. However, as you mentioned, like having student loans now, it wasn't until I was actually in school and I was in my program, you know, and looking day to day and interacting with people that were there. And I was in Florida, it's a state school, but I was an out-of-state tuition person.
Right.
But once again, that didn't register with me because I wasn't paying anyway.
Yeah.
But then when I had like, you know, I was meeting friends that were in-state and they were like, they didn't have a whole lot of money. And so even though the tuition was cheap, relatively, especially compared to what things are now, they were still like, it was like a make or break for them where they're like, okay, I got to get these thousands of dollars. Otherwise I am not able to register. I can't even go for classes, or people getting pulled out of class because, you know, their finances didn't come through.
Right.
And, you know, all that stuff. And so I was kind of watching that and I was like, oh, I guess I'm lucky for, you know, for this. And then even after graduating, I was able to, like, you know, I studied computer information systems for five years, and then I had a job right away, but I was like, I don't like this job, and so I just quit. You know, I was like, I'm just going to quit, and I didn't have any debt, and so it wasn't like I was like, how am I going to pay my bills? I was like, I'm going to go travel some more, and so I was able to do that. And, you know, as I was talking to people were like, well, what about your student loans, or how are you going to pay this, how are you going to pay that? And I was like, I don't have any student loans, and I didn't know that people paid them for 20 and 30 like years. And so I guess I was lucky, you know, very lucky to be able to get the education without, you know, being crushed by the debt.
Yeah.
And I'm actually been looking at, you know, I'm like, hey, I want to go back to school, you know. And I started looking at the prices, and I was like, wait, how much for, you know, 1 year and $50 and $60 and $70,000? I was like, okay, I guess this is what people talk about. So I hope they come up with some debt reform or some means of handling that. Because, like folks I know in other countries, like a friend of mine from Sweden, she just got her PhD, and she'd been in school for 15, 20 years.
They have different stuff. They don't pay over there, right?
And I was like, man, so when are you gonna, you know, how much does that cost you? She's like, it doesn't cost anything as long as you keep studying, you stay in your program, you don't fail out. As long as you're in school, it's free, it's paid for. Yeah, so I was like, that's a significant.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's really significant.
Definitely. That's Europe is different. So you're attending FAMU. I'm curious. I guess at what point or how or when do you start dancing? Has dancing always been something you enjoyed, or?
Yeah, dancing's always been something I enjoyed. The funny thing was, when I got to FAM, they're known for their marching band.
Okay.
But I didn't know that. I didn't actually know anything about the school.
Okay.
I just knew I had a scholarship there. I didn't know where it was on a map. I was like, it's in Florida. It must be close to the beach. It's not.
Okay.
It's not close to the beach at all. It's way north. It gets cold up there.
Oh, wow.
It's like, I mean, it doesn't get cold, but it's still Florida, but it's South Georgia. It's not Florida. I'm thinking Miami. I want to be on the beach and
not at
all that stuff. So I got down there and they were talking about this Marching 100, And I was like, who is this Marching 100? And it's the band, the marching band. And they're known for like dancing, known for being like, top quality musicians, but in the marching band on the field, like they dance. And I didn't play an instrument. But somebody told me that they had like a all-male flag corps, like not a drill team, because that's like the girls that kind of, but it was an all-male flag corps. And I was like, oh, okay. And they're like, yeah, you should do it. They need guys. And so I applied. By that time, they also took females. But so I went out there and I signed up. And so I was part of this marching band. I'd never been in a marching band before. Didn't play an instrument. Didn't know that this was like the premier marching band that kids would like in high school, elementary school. They just like always dreamed of being in the 100 one day. And I was just like, yeah, I'll do it, whatever. And so I didn't know that the band danced either. Because like I said, I'd never seen them before. And so I'd been, learning how to use the flag and how to march and move around in formations. And I was like, oh, all right, this is pretty straightforward. And then they, one day they all started, they like pulled everybody together. And then the guy goes up, he's like, all right, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6. I was like, what's this? They're like, we're doing the dance routine. I was like, the band dances?
Okay.
And they looked at me like, you didn't know the band danced? I was like, no, I didn't know the band danced.
Okay.
So I was so awkward because I'd never like danced in public.
Okay.
I was just like, all right. And so I was like, I would try to sit out and be like, okay, well, y'all dance and I'll just wait while y'all dance.
Right.
And they said, if you don't dance, you can't be in the band. I was like, oh. And so I didn't perform. I didn't march for like the first 2 games. And then something clicked, and I was like, all right, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it.
Nice.
And I went out there and just like poured myself into it so much that was like my like first thing of like dancing in public.
Okay.
And I never like look back after that. I was like, yeah, I love having an opportunity to do a dance routine or to to perform.
That's awesome,
things
man.
like that. So it was I did that for 2 years, and then I was a cheerleader for 2 years.
Okay.
And then I realized I need to graduate at some point in time, so I focused on like school. And my last 2 years, I was there for 5 years total. I really focused on school, and so I graduated 3-2. What was it? Magna cum laude or something like that, or cum laude. I think 3-2-1. 3-2-1.
That top or second?
No, it's like there's like cum laude, magna, summa, or all that stuff.
Okay.
Anyway, I graduated, and so I was happy with that. And then it was in my last year that I started getting into. I wanted to do partner dancing. I wanted to do salsa. First, I wanted to do any kind of partner dancing, and so I was looking for places that did partner dancing classes or something. And once again, this was pre like being able to just pull out your phone and say, oh, salsa. There was no YouTube, anything like that. So I was kind of poking around, looking in phone books and like trying to find a place to go. And I found one place that was doing some like swing. And so I did a little bit of that. And then they had a Latin night that started in at a place called Gordo's. And so I would go to that, to see people dance. And then when I saw like Latin dancing, I was like, this is what I want to do. And from then on, I was just straight all in on that.
That's awesome, man. So hold on, so you graduated from FAMU, bachelor's in computer information systems?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you was that, can I ask?
Say again?
When you was that, may I ask?
Where was I?
What year did you
graduate? 99. I graduated in 99.
Okay, sure enough.
Yeah.
So, so you graduate and you start to look for salsa classes. Where did you take your first class? Do you remember that?
Well, there was no place to take any classes when I was in Tallahassee.
Okay.
I would still go to this club, and I would I would dance more merengue than anything else.
Okay.
Then I saw some people dancing casino.
Okay, Cuban.
And I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. And so I went out. I rented Dance With Me. I rented the movie Salsa. And I bought a salsa instructional video. Okay. It wasn't even online. I just went.
Was that Blockbuster?
Yeah, I went. It was like going to the mall and buying it on a VHS tape. I might even have that VHS tape somewhere still. And so I watched them intently. I didn't care about the storyline. I would just fast forward through all the stories and just look at the dance scenes. And so I tried to do that. Then when I came up to DC, I found where they had salsa classes at a nightclub called Havana Village, which is over in Adams Morgan. And I went straight there, and I took my mom because I didn't have anybody to dance with.
Fair enough.
And so she did the class with me, and from there that's what I've been doing. Yeah.
Who was do you remember your instructor at that time?
It was Leon. The guy's name was Leon that taught that class. I took classes on Tuesdays at Lulu's with Ricardo and Elba. On Wednesdays, there was a place called Zanzibar they would go to, and Eileen Torres, she would have a little class there. Basically, anywhere I could take a class, that's what I would do.
This is 2000 DC, right?
Yeah, this is 99.
Okay.
99 in DC.
So let me ask you this, man. I'm very curious to hear. I definitely want to get some of the dancing, but I'm curious, how did DC transform from, 87 DC to 2000 DC?
Okay. Well, I left for college in 94. And so I was out of DC from 94 to 99. But the big transition, particularly like the gentrification in DC, that started happening right after I came back.
Okay.
And so this was like 99, 2000. And I remember in 2000 I moved to Brazil right after I graduated, and I started a job, and I quit the job. And then I moved to Brazil, and so I came back from Brazil in 2001, and I started working again in computers. And my rent, the area that I live now, the area that I used to live, my rent over there was $900.
That's not too bad.
It was for a 2-bedroom, parking. We had barbecues. It was a huge house.
Yes, you were. You had roommates.
I had a roommate, yeah. And our rent was $450 each.
Yeah.
And it was fine. Nowadays, that area over there, you couldn't find anything for under $2,500.
Okay. Yeah.
And particularly for what we had at the time, and it shot up.
Okay.
In the whole city, people started coming back to DC. This is when September 11th happened, because that's when I was living over there. I used to walk downtown to go to work, and so it's watching that fast change, and I welcome the change. Because the streets feel safer. There's places like you can go out at night. You're not constantly worried about having your car broken into, or crackheads walking up and down the street and harassing people or getting shot. People don't even think about that anymore. But at the same time, there are people that are displaced from the city, and I don't want to say that being displaced is their fault at all. It's frustrating watching when someone has grown up in a certain place. If you've grown up in DC all the time and it's your home, and then all of a sudden that's pulled out from under you, and you're like, all right, well, this isn't your home anymore because we've sold your apartment, or we sold your building that you used to live in now, and we can give you, of course, you get the offer of first refusal, where they're like, okay, do you want to buy it? Because now where you live, that you were paying, you were there on Section 8 housing. It's been flipped over, and now it's turning into condos, and those condos are selling for $1 million each. Are you going to buy one? Of course, people aren't going to buy one. They're like, I don't have that kind of money, and so they have to move out. And so, I can understand how people feel like they're, losing their, I don't want to say heritage, but they're losing their homes.
Right.
And I wish that there was a system built in so that they could understand what it takes to be able to have your own home, because you got to make decisions well before the time that someone shows up and says
this is happening.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, thinking ahead, I'm lucky to come from a family that is always decided to make the sacrifice now for how things are going to be later on.
Okay.
Making that 2.5-hour commute to go out
and
learn how to deal with a very hard school, so that when I came back from there, I don't want to say college was easy, but I didn't have 3 classes in college that were as hard as my experience in high school.
Oh.
So it wasn't the hardest classes I had in college were because I just hadn't buckled down.
Okay.
But once I was like, oh, this I just got to buckle down. They're just going to give me the book and I just read it and that's it. All right. It wasn't like the school I went to was hard, but I learned a lot from it.
I understand.
Yeah.
You spoke on it. I'm very curious to hear, man, about your time living in Brazil, man. Speak on that. And why Brazil of all places, you know?
Brazil, I moved to Brazil because I was mistaken. So, the story on that is a friend of mine, she told me she was going to go see a movie, an international movie, and wanted to know if I was interested. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. She says, yeah, it's going to be subtitles. I said, well, what country? She says, oh, it's like a Latin American, so I guess it's in Spanish. I was like, all right, cool. I study Spanish. It would be a good practice for me. Even if the movie's boring, I'll just practice listening to Spanish because I like languages. And so I'm sitting there, and the movie's playing, and I'm not reading the subtitles because I'm trying to force myself. It's my roommate.
Okay.
I'm trying to force myself to like get into the. If you're like reading it, then you kind of stop hearing it. So I'm like, listen to it. I'm like, I'm not getting this. I'm watching it, and then they had a scene where the lady is writing, and I'm looking at what she's writing, and I was like, she's not using symbols that you use in Spanish. Mm-hmm. She had ciruelas and ñas and and I was like, where's this set? And she's like, it's in Brazil. I was like, oh. I was like, that's not Spanish. Mm-hmm. And so once I realized that it wasn't Spanish, it was Portuguese. Then I was like still listening to it and it had some familiarity.
It's similar, but yeah, they're different.
It was completely different. But I was like looking at the people in the movie and I was like, wow, this is like a really beautiful country. I'd like to go see this place one day. So then when I started working, I was thinking about that, all the time. And I was like, man, that was a really cool place. I'd like to see that. And then my job, they told me that they had lots of international locations. And so I started, we had our first meeting and I was like, so what's up with these international locations? They told me it would be like 5 years before I would be able to go out there.
Okay. And
I was like, nah, that's not how it's going to be. So I was like, I quit my job. And I said, all right, I'm going to Brazil. Oh. And I just bought a ticket to Brazil and just went there. I stayed out there for 7 months. And then...
So you went by yourself?
Yeah, people came to visit me, while I was there because they thought I was crazy when I was like, yep, quitting my job. Y'all want to come to Brazil? Then I'll have a place down there. You're welcome to come. And so a few people took me up on it. And I think one of the interesting things is that of all the people that came down that took me up on that, they are still they kind of have this travel bug now.
Okay.
And so they're still traveling and a lot of them gone back to Brazil or decided to learn Portuguese or married Brazilians and just kind of done all kinds of they use that as a launch pad for maybe a life that they may not have gone into.
Okay.
Had not given them a place to stay.
Yeah. I want to speak on that, man. So, I guess what was that transition like? Going from America to Brazil, a completely new country, man. What was that like?
I was in Salvador in the north of Brazil, Bahia, and the transition was interesting because for me, Salvador is it was the original capital of Brazil. And it's where they had the bay and where they brought slaves into Brazil. It's got a huge African population. Right. So I get down there, and other than the way I was dressed, I just looked like the people that were there. And so it was once again that same idea of me being from someplace else. But as I loved seeing the similarities. And just being around people, and then once I got used to it and learn how to dress and learn how to what to wear, and if I didn't talk, people just assumed that I was from there. Uh-huh. And so I enjoyed that feeling. However, at the same time, economically, the black people, rough, man. Yeah, I mean, not just the black people, but the black people are poor, and there's sometimes I would have to talk in order for people to realize that I was not from there, and then all of a sudden they would change and treat me differently. Okay. And so I would be walking around the mall or something like that, and a security guard is walking around, following me because why am I in this mall? And then I would like say something, and then they would realize that I wasn't from there, and they'd be like, "Oh, he's an American. I didn't know that." So that was an interesting like life lesson type thing to see that. And then as I started to realize like people's like average salary when I was down there, not average salary, just like the minimum salary, like the minimum wage, what people make, basically what people make, they get paid on like a monthly basis. Was I think it was $80.
Wow.
And so, you know, at the time, like I would get there and I would see like a restaurant and I'd go sit down, Pizza Hut. Not even like I was dining, you know, high on the hog or anything like that. I would go to Pizza Hut and I would have somebody with me and the bill would come be $30. All right, $30, whatever, that's Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
And they would look at me like I had just like thrown down, I basically threw down half a month's salary right there. And it was like, all right, let's go. And they'd be like, all right. And then next day I'm like, want to go to Pizza Hut? And they're like, all right. And so, you know, like once I like understood like how much there was of the discrepancy there was between like having, you know, money and having options or like the average folks down there, like everybody works in arrears. They always just work being behind. And so they just call them dívidas. Like they have to pay their dívidas. And it's kind of like the mob concept where like they'll loan you money and then you just pay the interest. I mean, same thing we do with credit cards here, but you know, we do it with credit cards. People get thousands and thousands of dollars in debt. They're just hundreds of dollars in debt, but they're just trying to pay their interest on their debt. Okay. And so like I would go to buy something and they would have like a telephone, and the telephone would cost $30. And then they would always have two prices. They would be like, oh, it's $29.99. And then they would have like another price. It was like, or this much per month for everything. People just financed everything. And that was all they paid was their finance charges. And they just thought it was like, I was an alien for just going, looking at something like, yeah, I'll get that. And just, you know, buying it right then and there.
Were you working at the time or did you just have money saved up?
Yeah, I mean, I had money saved up, but it wasn't like I was, you know, pulling up with gold rims and everything like that. It was just, I mean, 7 months in Brazil, I think I had like $5,000.
So the cost of living was just
the cost of living was so cheap. A 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom apartment on the beach was $300.
Okay.
And so like I had to like find ways to spend money when I was out there. And so I wasn't even like thinking about, you know, trying to scrimp or trying to save or anything like that. But seeing what other people were going through, it was an eye-opening experience. And I realized that, you know, it's kind of like the scholarship thing. I can't take things for granted and just expect things to be a certain way. I have to be prepared to understand that other people.
Tell me about how important was, I guess, the language barrier? How much of a thing was the language barrier?
Well, I was lucky when I got to Bahia. Nobody spoke English, so yeah, I was lucky because I mean I like to learn languages and like being able to immerse yourself in it. It's hard to do anything halfway, and so I had a background speaking Spanish, and so I would get down there and I was just speaking Spanish to people, and they were speaking Portuguese back to me, and so I got a chance in Portuguese, like conversational Portuguese. I mean, I can't say that I can give like a literary dialogue or anything like that in Portuguese, but I can communicate. Okay. And so getting to that communication level, it ramps up really quickly when one, you have to. And two, it was easier than Spanish because of the verb forms that they use. So if you learn 3 verb forms for the present tense and those same 3 for the past, you can pretty much say whatever it is that you want to. You know, you can learn how to get around pretty easily. So that helped me a lot, and so I enjoyed that, and it kind of gave me a way to focus on learning languages and studying other languages. Okay. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. I've never been to Brazil, but I would love to visit, man.
Well, you got to go down. You got to go to Bahia.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, I haven't been back to. I've been back to some other parts of Brazil, but I haven't been back to Bahia yet.
Did you do any dancing while you were there?
Yeah, I was teaching mambo when I was down there. Yeah, because you know I was dancing. I just started dancing on 2, and I wanted other people to be able to dance with me on 2, I wanted to be able to dance with other people, and they didn't know how to dance on 2, and so I started teaching that. Are you picking that up?
That's good. I think it's fine, man.
Okay. So I started, dancing with them on 2, and then teaching them how to dance. And like my apartment was big. I had a big front room, and so we would, I would have parties, and people would come over and dance and play music, and I would play videos, and they could see like, dancers in Puerto Rico and LA, and kind of see what other people did, because once again there was no YouTube or anything like that. So I had like these secret tapes, and I would play them. So yeah, that's what I was doing when I was out there, and then when I came back, I just continued teaching people how to dance.
I'm curious, were you able to experience like any lambada or Brazilian zouk or?
No, they didn't really actually.
A forró?
They danced forró.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. Forró was almost like a cumbia, it was just a lot of like back rocks type stuff. And even salsa dancing wasn't that complicated when I was down there. It's gotten crazy, in the past 10 years even. And so they danced samba.
Right.
And so I didn't do.
Samba de Gafieira.
Yeah, samba gafieira. I didn't do any samba when I was there. I was there just teaching.
Okay.
And learning the language.
That's awesome,
so,
man.
If I were to think about going back and doing it again, I should have learned how to dance more samba. And there wasn't any zouk really that I saw.
Oh.
I mean, the
the
zouk craze.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I might have started around that time. I've been talking to some Brazilian zouk people. I think the early 2000s is like kind of when they were getting that Caribbean zouk music in northern Brazil.
And I was there in 2000.
Okay, sure enough. I'm curious, man. So why only 7 months though? I guess what made you return?
Well,
ran out of money.
Yeah, I ran out of money, and also like visa-wise, wasn't supposed to be there that long, because literally I just bought a ticket and went. It wasn't like I like filled out the proper paperwork and this and that. Probably can't get away with that nowadays. I just went.
Sure enough.
Yeah,
I understand.
And
so we kind of got away from it, man. But so you said you were teaching at that time salsa or mambo.
Yeah.
Going back to when you were first learning mambo, came back to DC and everything, man.
Okay.
Tell me about your beginner stage. What was it like learning to dance salsa?
Learning to dance salsa. It was the hardest thing for me when I first was learning to dance salsa, because I was okay with doing the basic step, leading a right turn, maybe even leading a left turn. The crossbody lead, that was the hardest thing for me, and I just did not understand it. And I remember I was taking a class, and the instructor was Howard, and he led me through a crossbody lead, and I was like, oh, that's how it's supposed to feel, or what I'm supposed to be doing. And then once he did that, that was like where I had the click.
Okay.
And then I was able to lead that, and then I led him through it. He's like, that's it.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, okay. And then once I had that, then everything else, like life became so much simpler, because, I like to like find that key, or that little one foundational piece that you can build everything else on top of. Mm-hmm. And so once I had that, I was solid.
Nice.
And then after that, I was taking all the classes I could. And everything was on one. It was all on one.
DC was on one city.
Mm-hmm. Then when I went out to LA with my job, sent me out to the West Coast, and so I was out there for I think 4 months, and I was taking classes, and I went to a club called not Steven's Steakhouse. It was a club that Albert Torres used to have.
Okay.
And I don't remember the exact name of it. It'll come back to me at some point. And I watched somebody dance a cha-cha. And I was like really impressed. I was like, wow, I didn't know you people could do that much with cha-cha. And so I was taking private. So I took private with a guy named Raul Santiago, who was actually from DC, but he was living in LA. And I was like, yeah, I want to do some cha-cha. And so he starts teaching me on 2. And I was like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm thinking 1, 2, cha-cha-cha, 3, 4, cha-cha-cha. And he was like, no, cha-cha is on two. It's got to be on two.
Cha-cha is Mambo, right? Yeah.
And I didn't even dance on two. I was like, I'm not trying to dance on two. I just want to dance cha-cha.
Okay.
He's like, well, if you want to dance cha-cha, you got to do it on two.
Right.
So I was kind of like, I was like, well, I already paid for the private, so I got to do it. And so as I'm doing it, like, I'm starting to like hear it, I'm starting to feel it. I was like, oh, now, I like this. Okay. And so I was just leading right turns and left turns, nothing fancy, but that was once again like that crossbody lead, that click. I was like, oh, I can hear where the music is now. And so when I came back to DC, I still danced on one, but I always danced cha-cha on two.
You have to, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Is there a cha-cha on one?
There are people that quite often dance cha-cha on one.
You can do anything. So, all right, show it.
But it's wrong. It grates against the music if you do that. So the
It's for you.
And so I met this girl that she danced on two. She was Brazilian, and she asked me like, "Oh, can you dance on two?" And I mean, she was hot, and I was like, I could dance cha-cha on two, so I can kind of do the basic. And she's like, all right, well, let's do that. And so like I would dance the basic, with her on two, and I was just like I was constantly like thinking about it. But she was patient with me, and then we would go out, dance, and a song would come on, and I would dance sometimes with her on one, and sometimes with her on two.
Okay.
And then finally I was just like, all right, let's just do it on two, and I just stayed on two with her. So yeah, it's always a girl that has some influence on what guys end up doing.
Yeah. Let me ask you this real quick, man. Going back to when you first started, man, what do you think? What drew you to salsa? What made you attracted to and what made you stay with it for so long?
The music, the lyrics, and the ability to meet new people.
Okay.
Those are like three things that matter to me. I love language and languages. So I would like hear a song and I want to know everything about it. I want to know what he was saying or where it was made or like what were the influences, all of that. And I love documentaries and just getting inside of stuff as much as I can. And then the language, because I'd studied Spanish and I was picking up different slang and things like that in the music, and then being able to dance with people was like a means of communication. So out of those things, I was like, all right, this is something that I'm really into, and I always feel like I don't know something until I know it well enough to teach it.
Okay.
And so it kind of naturally just became like, all right, now I'm going to teach this to try and pass on the same love that I have for it. I want other people to feel that too, and that's what keeps me in it.
Hey, shut up, man. That's awesome. So, so you're learning salsa and everything. You're teaching a little bit, and I guess I'm very curious, man. How does the idea of starting a festival of contest, how does that come about? Can you speak on that?
Well, the guy that just came by, that was my roommate at the house when we were in
951 or okay, sure.
Yeah.
So you know him for a while then.
900, yeah. Okay. I've known him for 20-something years.
Okay.
And we had this big railroad apartment, and so it was like you open up the front door and there was a hallway, but then all the other rooms were like connected.
Okay,
and
I get you.
So
like a shotgun house?
Yeah, exactly, like shotgun.
Okay, I just came from New Orleans.
Oh yeah, okay, exactly, like that. And so, you could open up, like if I took like I could basically we could open it up and have just like this clear path and we looked at it. We had a backyard. We were like, we got to have parties here. And so we started having these salsa parties at the house, and they would start like early afternoon, but they wouldn't finish until it was like good times. The parties would finish at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and they would all come in phases, and everybody would bring food or they would bring something, and there were like no money. There was no money that changed hands at the party, but we always told people they got to bring something.
Okay.
So they would bring a soda or a bag of chips or whatever, and after we finished, we'd have lots of food in the house. And so we would do these parties like every 3-4 months, and I would write up these emails to like promote the party.
Yeah.
And I love writing up the emails, and then I would write out these emails that was like a review for the party so people could hear how it was and whatnot. And I wasn't thinking anything about it. It was just having a party. And there was a promoter from New York named David Melendez. And like he came down to the party one time because people started coming to the parties from all over the East Coast. They were like flying in for these parties. And we didn't, it started as like a joke.
This is 04, 05 or what?
This was 2001.
Okay, he started then. Okay.
It started as a joke because I would like put together this email description for the party, figuring people were just gonna like drive over or whatever. But I was like, oh, let me give people some subway directions. And then I'm always taking things to the next level. I was like, so if you take the train in, then go to Union Station and then do this. If you fly in, go to this airport. Now I was just putting that out as a joke. Like if somebody says, as a joke.
Yeah.
Well, people started looking at it and they were getting this thing, they would get it 2-3 times a year. And then one day I was having a party and I look out the window and a buddy of mine from college was walking down the street from Chicago.
Wow.
And I was like, what's going on, Ed? He's like, hey, he had a little backpack with him. I was like, why are you here? He's like, you sent me the thing for the party.
Hey,
and I was like, when did you, like, what are you doing in town? He's like, well, you put instructions on how to get there. And he flew in and crashed on my couch. I said, no, if you fly in, you can crash on the couch. He crashed on my couch. And anyway, from that concept, when this promoter came down from New York and he saw the party, he's like, this is like how he liked to make his events. I was like, just a big party of friends coming together and enjoying themselves. And so he said to me, he said, I'm going to be doing a Congress in DC. David, he did the New York Congress. And he said, I'm going to be doing a Congress in DC and I want you to be my partner. And I was like, I don't know how to do a Congress. I've never done anything like that.
Yeah.
Put you in touch with some of the promoters in DC.
Uh-huh.
He's like, nah, just do it the same way you do your parties.
Okay.
And I was like, all right. And that's when I, we started doing that. And he told me he would take care of all the logistics stuff. And we had the first Congress and
that was in 05, right?
That was in 05,
okay.
yeah.
So 4 years of just doing house parties, right?
Yeah.
And then you link up with him, he's like, let's do a major scale thing?
Mm-hmm. It was exactly, I had nothing in between. I didn't have anything else. But then after that, like we did it and lost a whole lot of money.
Okay.
And then the second year, we did it again and didn't really make any money. And I told him, I was like, listen, I don't want to do this anymore. It's a lot of work.
Okay.
And
wow, it almost ended.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not trying to do this anymore. And then he said, well, what if you just took over the whole thing and I'll come down and I'll MC? And I was like, oh, all right, that's fine.
So was he the issue? I don't know.
No, he wasn't the issue.
Okay.
It's just like, it was a matter of like doing a whole lot of work. First time losing a bunch of money.
I want to speak on it, man. So
Yeah.
let's talk about what happened that first year, man. Tell me about that first year. What was that like? First year running a festival, man.
The festival was awesome.
Uh-huh.
People had a great time at the party.
What'd you host at that first year?
It was at I think it's a W now, but at the time it was called the Hotel Washington.
Okay.
And we basically, you make a certain commitment to the hotel.
Right.
And we didn't have that commitment. We didn't meet our rooms.
Okay.
And so it ends up flip-flopping and they charge you for the ballrooms and your costs suddenly change significantly.
Right.
And then and so I had to write a couple of checks for like $25,000 and $30,000
To pay for everything?
to pay for everything.
Wow.
And so I the second time around, the party went well, but I think we might have made like $2,000 or $3,000. But it's a year of work, and you're spending lots of money to do that. And so,
right. And is it just you two, you and David?
Yeah.
That's a lot of work, man.
Mm-hmm. And so I was like, this is a lot of work to make $1,500, And so I told him, like, I'm not trying to do this anymore. And he said, well, what if you take over the whole event and you book who you want to book and so on, and you just have me come down and I'll MC. And I was like, I could do that, because now I'm like, okay, I'm not thinking about, even if I were to do a whole bunch of work and make $10,000, splitting that with somebody who didn't really do anything.
Uh-huh.
And so, I was like, I'm not trying to do all that work, And so he said, take over, you do the party, and then you just pay me to come down and MC, and then we'll keep going. Mm-hmm. And that kind of changed the perspective. I was like, all right, so if I do all the work, if I did make $10,000, at least I get to keep that,
right.
Right. And then so he never actually got to come and do that because he passed away.
Fortunate.
And so, I realized that like his thing wasn't about like the money for the event. He wanted to like have the spirit of that event there, and he wanted me to like keep that going. And so he was like, whatever it takes to keep that going, and he wants to be a part of it. And so when he passed away in like February. The event's always been in June. So one year we did it in August, but other than that, it's always been in June. And when he passed away, people were calling me, and they were like, "Yeah, so are you still going to do it or what?" And I was like, this man died trying to create things like this. If I were to just be like, "Nah, I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm not going to like throw away the last things that he was working on in his life," because it wasn't sudden. I mean, he knew he had cancer. He knew he knew he didn't have a whole lot of time, and he was trying to like plant all these seeds for these events. So that's how it started. Started doing it, and that's why we keep doing it.
Okay, and memory.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this real quick, man. And it's kind of like a two-part question, man. So I want to like give value to people who may be listening.
Sure.
So, to someone who is aspiring to actually have their own little festival, maybe just their own little party, but maybe having a festival, a congress, or anything. What things that you know now do you wish you could have done differently when you first started?
I mean, every event is a learning opportunity, and it takes a while to get into a position where it's a well-oiled machine, right. so to speak. And even the fact that like we changed from a hotel that we were at for 8 years to like a new one, even making that decision, it was some what's it called, wringing of the hands or whatever, where you're just trying to figure out like, is this really worth it? Mm-hmm. Because every transition is like relearning a new hotel, relearning it's like starting over. So if I was going to say, if anybody was planning on doing their own event, first like get a mentor, find somebody that you can talk to that has done it.
Right, that makes it easier, right?
And even if you didn't like the way they did their event, still talk to them because sometimes they'll let you know why things were done a certain way.
Sure enough.
So that you're not trying to reinvent the wheel going in there and, making, I don't want to say the same mistakes, but you're trying to learn from things that you don't have to like lose a lot of money on.
Right. Was David that for you, or did you even have that at all?
No, I didn't really have that.
Okay.
And so it's been something that like I've tried to focus on, like every time I take another step to like do as much research as I can and speak to people and make sure that I understand why I'm doing and what I'm expecting out of it. And so I consider myself lucky to be able to like work with people on putting their own events together. And so I can kind of guide them through or just let them know where some pitfalls, are things that they need to keep an eye open for. Because that's what I enjoy doing. For me, it's all teaching. So if I can teach anything, then that's what I'm going to do.
Okay, sure enough, man. Say you started up, man. Let me ask you this. You've been doing it for 15 years now. Is that right? Or close to 15?
The Congress, we're coming up on our 16th year for the Congress.
Sure enough,
I've been teaching for 20 years.
Okay, man. I guess let me ask you this. You said it earlier. I guess when did you feel like running the Congress became like a well-oiled machine? What was that transition?
Ooh. When you're well, like way inside of it, you I guess it's when people from the outside start saying things like, "Oh, this is so organized."
Okay.
And I have to like take a step back and like think about like how we do things at the event, or I'll go to another event and I'll see things that we do differently and that people appreciate. Like, you know, like our shows start on time, our workshops start on time. We have like, you know, such a system in place for everything to flow smoothly that I start to take that for granted.
Okay.
And then when I realize, when I go someplace else and that's not happening, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can see why people would be upset or why they're, you know, surprised when they come to our event. And they're like, yeah, your check-in is done, your registration's here, your passes are here, your workshops are here. Like, they understand all that stuff. But that is something that, you know, it probably took us, 6-7 years to get closer to that. And, you know, we keep refining it every year that comes around. You know, I sit down and I go over the whole process and say, like, what, you know, where is it that we can improve, or what went well and what didn't go so well. You know, it's something I can't really be lazy about. I have to, like, constant moment I get lazy about something, that's when it starts to slip, and I say, oh, let me step this aspect back up. So I guess if that answers your question, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So you have a team with you right now?
Absolutely.
You have to, right?
Yeah,
okay.
I couldn't.
And so I really want to hear about this, man. You know, so I guess at this point, man, if someone were to, you know, aspire to get into this, man,
get into
hosting conferences, having a festival,
hosting an event,
yeah. Is it wrong to get into it for the money, or is it something that you should do for the passion?
If you get into it for the money, then you're going to get out of it pretty quick.
Okay.
Because the amount of work that it takes to make it happen.
Yeah. You good.
You could do so many other things if you've got that same amount of energy.
Okay.
But if there has to be a passion to it, and on the flip side, though, if you're full of passion and you're losing money, it's not going to last for very long.
Sure enough.
And so you got to be able to, like, combine that, like, passion for it with the willingness to sometimes make decisions that, like, your heart is like, man, I really want to do this, but then you look at the numbers, you're like, all right, I need to wait, you know, because if I did everything I wanted to do, then I would be spending $500,000 on an event that doesn't make $500,000. And so, I mean, that's the same thing of, like, sitting down with somebody else that has done it before and having them kind of point things out, and point things out and show you, like, costs that you may not have looked at, or, you know, income opportunities that you may not have, that you can also consider to, like, you know, to give yourself a better chance of making an event that's survivable, that can keep going.
You know, just like trying to give value to people, man. Any other hints and tips you can give someone, man?
On
the whole process, man. You know, start small maybe, or, you know, how, like, anything.
Start by learning how to delegate.
Okay.
And
instead of trying to do everything yourself, right?
Yeah, if you're trying to do everything yourself, it's not going to work. It's a mentality that you have to develop from, like, the ground up. It's important, I think, in anything, particularly in terms of, well, in anything, whether it's salsa or whatever it is that you want to do, you have to recognize what it is that you are bringing to the table, and from that, hire people to do everything else.
Okay.
And so, like, as an example, I love doing lighting, you know, setting up lights. I love doing sound, you know, setting up sound. I'm not a DJ, but you know, I love, you know, teaching. I love being able to perform. I love taking things apart, putting computers together. All those things are aspects of the event.
Right.
However, at the Congress, I know that none of those things should be my job.
Okay.
And so I try to make sure that, okay, I need to hire a team that is in charge of doing each of these things that I love and let them do it, because there's something that only I can do, that my team can't do, or that they look to me for.
Right.
And so I have to like say, okay, I'm going to take account. I'm going to be responsible for what happens, but that's in terms of being accountable. So if something didn't happen, then I can say, all right, my job is to figure out how to get this to happen the next time, but it's not my job to do it. Because if I do everything, then you end up thinking to yourself, okay, if this was my only job, I would do it this way. But it's not your only job. And so if you end up trying to do that job and then trying to do another job and trying to do another job, someone once said that they knew that I cared about the event because there was some water on the floor, on the dance floor. And I like went and grabbed a mop and I was cleaning up the water. And when they said that, they were like, yeah, I can tell that you're just like really into, it's important to you.
It's your baby, though, right?
And it is. But I was like, if I had, built the team right, somebody else would have done that.
Okay.
And I would have been able to say like, hey, we got water there. And somebody said, or somebody else would have even seen it and taken care of that. Because I can't like direct the whole event if I'm doing little things like trying to like tape down speaker wires or being critical of how the lighting is. Like I have to let other people do those things so I can focus on like emceeing, making sure that folks are enjoying themselves and kind of like keep the spirit of the event going. And so I realize that's like a long-winded answer, but it's I think that's important in whatever it is that you do. Like as a team leader, like a quarterback might be able to run the ball, but if they're running the ball every single play and you got running backs sitting there like, why am I here? Receivers that are just like waiting and they're just trying to power that through every single time, it's not going to last. You might get one touchdown, you might get something, but it's not going to last for the whole team. And they can't do it by themselves all the time. And so, I mean, for a football analogy, but it's like it doesn't, let that quarterback throw, let the defensive lineman, block, let people do their job, and then you entrust them to do that so that you can now focus on your long game and saying like, okay, this is how we're going to win the game, not how I'm going to run down and try not to get hurt. That doesn't work because you will get hurt. To ride that analogy.
I understand. I get you. It's are you able to do? Is this your full time? Is dancing like, or that dancing? That's your full time, or do you have a full time job?
A full time. Congress is a full time experience. It's what the things that I do. Like I do lighting. I set up events. I organize events. Everything I do it's around event management. And so. I guess I'm an event professional.
I was gonna say, so are you using your information systems degree? That's what I mean. That's my question.
As much as I use computers all the time before, when I was in school, I was studying databases and whatnot. That training has allowed me to do the stuff that I do now. And so like I'm all right. I need to go reconfigure and rebuild a web page. I'll do that, but it's not like my job is to do that. It's just a matter of like, having the background lets me do it, and sometimes it's a distraction because I'm trying to do too many things myself that I should just be hiring somebody out for. But I'm an event professional. That's what I do.
That's awesome.
Put together events, and that's what I like.
So this is that follow question, man. Since you're an event planner or manager, man, I guess, are you happy in life? And is this like, are you happy with what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
If I wake up and I'm not happy, it doesn't last. I can't do that for more than a couple of weeks at least. I think learning how to like look at something and realize that it's not for you, and then move away from it, take that next step. I spend a lot of time watching people. I mean, you have to when you're trying to teach people and whatnot. And I see a lot of times people, they get like stuck being in a situation, and it's not a situation that they're happy with, but they're so uncomfortable saying, I'm not going to do this anymore, that it's like you're looking at, all right, I don't like the situation, but me walking away from it makes me this uncomfortable. So I'm just going to stay in it until this gets to that point. But if you don't like it, I'm like, you want to be in this point of like, being in a situation makes me uncomfortable and I'm not going to do it. So that the moment you're even if you're here, like, I don't like this situation, you're able to just, cut it and then move on with your life. And that like satisfaction is what will allow you to like put your passion into something and say like, okay, this is something that I like, I enjoy doing. I remember not the first time, but a time that I was like, man, I need some money. And I took an IT job. And for me, my passion is traveling. And I had 2 trips coming up. I had like a trip to Japan and a trip to Europe. And they were like back-to-back weekends. And so I told them, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to be here for this weekend. I'm leaving on Thursday, so I won't be here Thursday, Friday. And next weekend I won't be here Thursday, Friday. I wasn't like asking. I was just telling them when I was going to be there. And they were like, oh, well, you're going to have to pick one of them.
Okay, you can't have both.
And I was like, and I thought about it, and I got home, and I was like, nah, I'm not letting them determine what I'm doing with my life. So I came back in and I gave them my key. I was like, here's my key card, and I want you to find someone that can do the job the way that you require it. And it wasn't like me saying that y'all are wrong or I'm right. I was like, this match isn't there, so there's no point in us like trying to drag this out and figure this out and figure that out. But then I was able to go and do my trips, and I didn't have a job anymore, but it wasn't like I was worried about that aspect of life. I was like, I'm not going to stick with something that I don't like until it kills me.
Oh, that's difficult though, man. And what I mean is, I don't know how you set your life up, man. It's amazing. But a lot of people don't have it like that when they can just quit a job on the spot, man.
Well, it's not like I'm saying that like I hit the lottery one day and then I mean, there's definitely going to be like financial considerations. However, what I'm saying is, if you put yourself in a situation where you're taking on, more financial burdens and you're financing it by doing something that you don't like, then it's like the same thing as paying dívidas. You're paying interest on something that you like didn't necessarily need to buy, but it's just like the mentality I think is important. So like for me, like financially, I keep my expenses very low. But I, keep my debts at 0 because I was like, okay, making sure that I am able to live this way. And there's still sacrifices that I know that I'm making. But, in terms of like my happiness, that's something that I'm not, not willing to sacrifice. I mean, I'm lucky. I don't have a partner or wife or anything like that. I don't have any kids and student loans, stuff like that. But even if I were to take something like that on, I would know that I would be doing it in such a way that I'm able to continue with the right head task, I guess.
I mean, you're at where you're at because of the decisions you made, man. So I understand.
Yeah, and so there's plenty of sacrifices,
of course,
that you always make, but still alive. I'm happy about that.
Fair enough, man. Let me ask you this real quick, man. I don't want to hold you up too much longer, man.
Take your time. I got all day.
But I guess what are your like future goals? How would you define success for Capitol Congress?
Success for the Capitol Congress? Even having people call it the Capitol Congress is a success in itself, because when it started out, it was the DC Salsa Congress. And taking careful steps to like expand it, make sure that it's continually inviting for people, that we're able to like bring new people into it. I think success for me, it's not so much the amount of the money that we make, it's creating like a sustainable system that I can, that that takes care of itself.
Okay.
I guess that's redundant, but creating a system that takes care of itself, and that people get excited for each year, because there's been ups and downs. There's been times when I've looked at it and said, like, you know what, it's still not worth it.
Okay.
And then I'm like, all right, I can't do this anymore. This is going to be the last one. And then something happens. Somebody comes up and says, I've been to this, coming to this every year, or I can't wait until next year, or just something like that. Things like that make me like say, all right, well, I guess I'm not. There's a reason. Folks believe in the event.
Yeah.
And so I think that's my dream, is to make it something that more people continue to believe in, and then they continue to support. I think that would be
Yeah.
That's what's satisfying for me.
Sure enough.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I guess at this point, man, I want to just thank you, Shaka, for taking some time to talk to me.
Thanks for having me, Terrence. Thank you. I appreciate
man.
it.
Of course, man. I've been to your festival. Been to it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, you got to come back. You said 16, 17. You missed 19.
Yeah. I was in New Orleans for 2 years, man.
Yeah?
So, I was down there for a little while.
What were we doing down in New Orleans?
I'm actually military, man. So I was stationed down there.
Oh, that explains a lot.
Yeah.
So Dejan down there.
Dejan Pulaski, definitely.
Yeah, he was at the Congress this year.
Dejan,
He'll be back.
Yeah. That's the big homie.
Oh, okay, cool. He's also military too.
He was, yeah.
I think he was Navy. No, Air Force. He was Air Force.
I believe so, exactly. Yeah. So I definitely know. Yep. Yeah. We want to thank you, man. I guess let me ask you this real quick. Before we close this out, man. Can you tell me, what are some of your upcoming events? And do you have anything going on in your life?
Oh, well, I've got the Congress coming up. That's on June 18th to the 22nd,
in
2020.
DC.
Yeah. It's capitalcongress.com. That's the biggest thing. Other than that, I mean, I'm still teaching, still traveling. That's since I was that little boy getting lost. That's what I'm still doing. But folks can find me at shakabrown.com.
Okay.
Social media, Shaka Brown. That's probably the best way to find out what's going on with me and what I'm doing myself.
Sure enough. Mm-hmm. That's perfect. Mm-hmm. Like I said, thank you, Shaka. Any last words before we close this out? Anything you want to say to the people at all?
No. Thank you for taking this much time to listen to me rant and ramble on. And thank you, Terrence, for reaching out. Looking forward to seeing this and to be a part of this collection.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, Shaka. Thank you so much.
All right.
I think this will wrap it up for this episode of the Two Liffy Podcast. Take it easy.
All right, so hey everyone. If you made it this far to the end of the video, I want to thank you so much for just, watching this. I really hope that you found value in this. My whole goal in this endeavor is, to give a voice to people, to dancers, and to give value to the dance community. So if I'm not giving value, it's kind of pointless. So I strongly urge you to please comment and let me know where I can improve, what I need to do better, what I'm doing wrong, and hopefully what I'm doing right, but my overall goal is I want to give content. I want to be helpful. So please let me know where I can improve upon. I'm new to all this, so I'm learning as I go. So I need feedback. Please comment and just let me know how I can improve. I would greatly appreciate that. That means the world to me, just to be able to interact with you all, have a conversation with you and just, see what you like and what you don't like. That means the world to me. I love interacting with you all. It means so much to me. But thank you so much for making it this far into the video. I gotta say, please leave a like, subscribe. If you don't like it, then let me know why not. Hit the down like button, hit the unlike button. But thank you so much. I really do appreciate it.